When a narcissistic woman loses someone who truly loved her, she doesn't wake up with regret. She wakes up with panic disguised as pride. They always believe love will chase them, until one day it doesn't. In this video, we're breaking down the psychological shift she goes through the moment she realizes she lost the one person who actually cared, and why her entire mask begins to crack from inside. When a narcissistic woman realizes she has lost someone who truly loved her, the first change happens internally, and it happens quietly. On the outside, she keeps the same posture, shoulders back, chin up, calm expression. She has trained herself to never show vulnerability because vulnerability to her feels like weakness. But inside, something shifts. That initial sense of superiority she carried like armor doesn't feel as solid anymore. The belief that you would always be there, waiting, loving, admiring, has been challenged. And narcissists don't handle their illusions being challenged. Her ego wasn't just stroked by your love, it was built by it. She didn't see your affection as a gift. She viewed it as proof of her superiority, her desirability, her importance. Losing that source doesn't create sadness first, it creates insecurity she doesn't know what to do with. This change doesn't look dramatic or emotional. She won't cry in front of anyone. She won't tell her friends she feels shaken. Instead, she tries to overperform confidence. She will behave like nothing happened, like she's above feeling anything. She may post content that screams how unbothered and happy she is. But real confidence doesn't need to be performed. When someone keeps proving they don't care, they care. And deep inside, she feels a discomfort she hasn't felt in a long time. Doubt. Doubt about her worth, her ability to replace your loyalty, her attractiveness, her power. Narcissists do not fear being alone. They fear losing the person who made them feel superior. This insecurity begins showing through small cracks. She begins comparing herself not just to anyone new in your life, but to the version of herself she was when she had you. She remembers the validation, the attention, the emotional energy that always came her way. Now she pays attention to how people respond to her, and if others fall short of the emotional depth you gave, she silently feels less powerful. When she looks in the mirror, she doesn't just evaluate how she looks. She evaluates whether she still looks like someone who could have you if she wanted. Narcissists measure themselves through the reactions of others, and losing someone who truly saw them as valuable becomes a threat to their self-image. Comparison becomes her private battlefield. She compares her current admirers to you. She compares her new attention to the loyalty you gave. She compares how secure she felt when you were in her corner to how fragile her confidence feels now. She won't admit this. Even in her mind, she tries to hide from this truth. She will tell herself stories like, "He wasn't good enough, I can do better, he was obsessed with me, I needed to get away." But these self-affirmations feel weaker now, not because you proved anything, but because your absence did. She feels the difference between attention and genuine love, and for someone built on ego, that difference is heavy. And this is where the insecurity becomes more than emotional, and it becomes behavioral. She becomes more observant, more critical of herself, more concerned about how the world sees her. She starts caring more about looking powerful because she doesn't feel powerful. She will question whether she misjudged the situation, whether she lost something valuable, whether she overestimated her irreplaceability. That silent questioning is a form of emotional panic for her, but she won't call it panic. She calls it reevaluating and being cautious or protecting her peace. Meanwhile, what she is actually protecting is her ego from collapsing under the sudden understanding that maybe she wasn't the one who had the upper hand after all. When a narcissistic woman realizes she's lost someone who truly loved her, the emotional shift doesn't appear as sadness first. It begins as a silent panic hiding under a controlled exterior. She does not allow herself to appear devastated because vulnerability threatens the identity she built. Her entire personality is founded on the belief that she is desired, wanted, and hard to let go of. So instead of breaking down, she tries to behave normally, almost coldly, as if nothing has changed. She keeps her tone calm, she maintains her routine, she even laughs like she's perfectly fine. But inside, her emotional world gets chaotic because she used your love not just as affection, but as an anchor for her ego, and that anchor just disappeared. What makes the stage intense is that she never expected you to become unreachable. Narcissistic women thrive on knowing someone is emotionally tied to them. They expect loyalty, patience, and forgiveness without limits. The moment they sense that their emotional hold is gone, it disrupts the internal power dynamic they rely on. She starts sensing a loss of control, and control is her oxygen. Without it, she begins to feel unstable. Yet rather than face this inner fear, she masks it. Narcissists don't process emotional loss normally. They rationalize, deflect, and pretend, so she tells herself stories. He'll come back. He's just trying to prove a point. No one walks away from me. But these thoughts aren't confidence. They are defense mechanisms. They exist to protect her from accepting the truth. She underestimated you. This internal panic also brings confusion. She begins replaying memories, not for emotional closure, but to understand where she lost influence. She analyzes moments where she thought she had you locked in emotionally, and now that those points feel uncertain, she experiences identity friction. Narcissists don't just lose a partner, they lose a mirror that reflected admiration and significance back to them. So the emotional panic is not about losing love, it's about losing proof of superiority. That's why she tries to stay composed externally. She wants everyone around her to believe she still has control, even when she knows she doesn't. Over time, this disguised panic morphs into hyper-awareness of her image. She becomes more selective about her behavior, more careful with her words, more intentional about appearing stable and confident. But these adjustments are not growth, they are insecurity management. She's not improving herself, she's protecting her ego. She may suddenly start talking about self-worth, healing, empowerment, or independence, but notice the pattern. It's performance, not transformation. Narcissists know how to mimic recovery before they ever consider actually healing. She wants the world to believe she's moved on and that losing you didn't shift her at all. But if she truly didn't care, she wouldn't need to prove anything. Inside, she feels threatened by peace, especially yours. She expected chaos, tears, desperation, or attempts to win her back. Instead, she sees calm from your side, and calm feels like rejection to a narcissist. Your silence becomes louder than anything you ever said, because it tells a truth she cannot emotionally digest. She wasn't as irreplaceable as she believed. The panic deepens when she compares your stability to her own emotional fluctuations. She sees you operating in focus, rebuilding, maybe even growing, while she is stuck checking whether your behavior still revolves around her. That kills her pride slowly, silently, painfully. This emotional panic will not make her apologize authentically. It doesn't make her reflect on her behavior in a healthy way. Instead, it pushes her into internal resistance. She tries harder to feel powerful again. She may seek attention elsewhere, amplify her confidence, or surround herself with noise to drown out the truth. But the shift already happened. She no longer feels untouchable. She feels replaceable. And for a narcissistic woman, that feeling is the beginning of a war she fights inside herself quietly, pretending nothing is wrong as her ego struggles to survive without the love it once fed on. Once a narcissistic woman realizes she lost someone who genuinely loved her, she enters a phase she will never publicly admit: silent observation. This stage is not about reconnecting emotionally. It's about monitoring. She doesn't reach out immediately because reaching out would expose vulnerability, and vulnerability is something she fears more than losing the relationship itself. Instead, she watches. She checks your social media, your activity, your updates. She notices the timing of your posts, the tone of your captions, the type of content you share. She is not looking for happiness. She is scanning for weakness, longing, or signs that you still revolve around her emotionally. To the outside world, she behaves like she has moved on effortlessly, but behind that polished, confident mask, she is searching for validation that she still holds space in your life. Narcissistic women don't miss people, they miss control. They crave knowing they can walk back into your life if they choose to. So when she sees you living without emotional chaos, without chasing her, without mourning publicly, it threatens her deeply. Your strength becomes her insecurity. She interprets your peace as rejection because in her mind, if she truly mattered, you would be visibly suffering. This observing behavior often starts subtly. She might view your stories without reacting. She may suddenly like a random old post just to signal her presence without saying anything. Or she might disappear online but quietly watch everything. Narcissists are strategic. They monitor silently because they want to gather emotional data without risking their pride. If she sees something that suggests you still care, she feels relief. If she sees nothing, if you seem focused, positive, rebuilding as she feels agitation, silence from you is not neutrality to her, it's proof you're escaping her emotional orbit. In this phase, she becomes more sensitive to any indication that you are happy without her. Even indirect signs bother her. A new routine, new goals, healthy behavior, confidence, or a more peaceful lifestyle. Narcissists do not envy lovers, they envy emotional stability. If she sees that you are calmer without her than you were with her, it assaults her ego. She once believed that she was the center of your thinking. If she senses that you've stepped into a stronger version of yourself, she begins feeling irrelevant, and irrelevance is unbearable to her. She will try to decode your emotional state from afar. She asks mutual friends casually, pretending not to care, or she checks who you interact with online. Even if she doesn't initiate contact, her mind is busy. She imagines scenarios where you might miss her, where you realize she was special. But every sign of your detachment chips away at that fantasy. Her ego fights reality by narrating excuses in her mind. You're pretending, you're trying to make her jealous, you're still obsessed. These thoughts aren't confidence, they are denial built to protect her fragile sense of superiority. Even while watching from a distance, she is preparing psychologically. She tries to predict your reaction if she ever decides to return. She wonders whether you would respond instantly, whether you'd hesitate, whether you'd ignore her. This uncertainty disturbs her more than the breakup itself. Narcissists can't handle unpredictability, especially when they are no longer in control of the emotional tone. While she watches, she also starts subtly testing. A random message, a polite reaction, a nostalgic comment, not to reconnect, but to gauge your emotional temperature. She wants to know, do you still respond with the same warmth? Do you still get affected? Does she still trigger emotion? Every tiny interaction is data to her ego, proof of whether she still holds emotional power or not. This silent monitoring phase reveals something she never expected to face. She is no longer the narrator of your emotional life, and that realization unsettles her identity more than losing the relationship ever could. After losing someone who genuinely loved her, the narcissistic woman shifts into a very calculated phase. She tries to re-enter your emotional space, not with vulnerability or accountability, but through strategic behavior. This isn't a grand apology or a dramatic confession of regret. That would require humility she doesn't possess. Instead, she becomes unexpectedly polite, nostalgic, or emotionally soft, but only in controlled doses. She wants to maintain the illusion that she still has access to you, that she can return if she ever chooses, and that you haven't fully detached. This isn't about love returning, it's about power returning. It often starts subtly, a polite text after months of silence, a random check-in disguised as concern. Just wanted to make sure you're good. A soft memory dropped casually. Remember when we used to... She may suddenly like one of your posts or reply to a story or comment on something in a way she never did when she had your attention. These actions aren't accidental. They are probes. She is testing your emotional temperature. If you respond warmly, she feels reassured that she still holds emotional currency in your life. If you reply politely but distant, she feels threatened. And if you ignore her, that's when her ego burns the most. Her politeness doesn't come from growth. It comes from insecurity. Narcissists don't reach out because they realized your value. They reach out because they realized you might stop valuing them. When she senses you've healed or moved forward, she tries to blur the past by fabricating a softer, sweeter connection. Suddenly she remembers your good qualities, your efforts, your loyalty. But understand something, she doesn't appreciate these qualities. She misses the power those qualities gave her. She wants access to the emotional benefits, not the emotional bond. This phase can also appear as friendliness. She may start talking with a calm tone, acting like she's mature now, saying she wants peace or closure. But narcissists don't seek closure. Closure ends access. Her goal is not to rebuild a relationship. Her goal is to preserve her ability to influence your emotions. If she sees that you are healing without her, she may switch to flattery, complimenting your growth or acknowledging how well you are doing. But every compliment she gives has a hidden agenda to pull you emotionally closer, even if just by an inch. If politeness or nostalgia doesn't work, she may take a different approach. Vulnerability. She might suddenly share personal struggles, stress, or emotional challenges. She has never been comfortable being emotionally open, but if she feels her grip slipping, she will use vulnerability as a tool rather than a genuine expression. This is not her healing. This is her manipulating empathy. She knows you once cared deeply, and she bets that even now, compassion might soften your boundaries. What confuses people in this stage is how believable she may seem. Her tone becomes gentle, her presence feels calm, she acts like she finally understands. To someone who once loved deeply, these changes can feel real, but narcissists don't change without crisis, and even then, they don't explore accountability, they explore strategy. Every polite message, every nostalgic reference, every emotionally toned phrase is meant to reopen a door she fears is closing. And if you respond with warmth or softness, she feels reassured. She becomes confident that she still has emotional presence in your life. But if you remain neutral, strong, and emotionally unavailable, she feels exposed. Her pride gets threatened, her identity feels unstable again, and she starts questioning whether she overestimated her ability to keep you emotionally tied. This polite and nostalgic stage isn't love resurfacing, it's ego maintenance disguised as gentle behavior, designed to restore access to something she never truly appreciated when she had it. When a narcissistic woman loses someone who truly loved her, her emotional world enters a phase she never prepared for: identity disruption. Narcissists don't just lose a person, they lose a reflection. Your love wasn't simply affection to her, it served as proof of her desirability, importance, and superiority. So when that love disappears, she doesn't ask, "What did I do wrong?" Instead, she unconsciously asks, "What does this say about me?" That question alone threatens her entire self-image. Narcissists rely heavily on external validation to feel secure, and you were one of her strongest sources of it. Without your admiration, her ego doesn't just feel wounded, it feels unstable. This internal identity confusion shows up in ways she would never admit. Suddenly, she begins questioning things she never doubted before: her value, her attractiveness, her emotional pull over others, her control. She used to believe she could always replace people effortlessly, that loyal love would always return to her on command. When she realizes that you truly let go, that belief system fractures. She may appear composed, but beneath that surface, a silent fear grows. What if I'm not as powerful or irresistible as I thought? Narcissists don't process insecurity the way healthy people do. They experience it as a threat to their existence rather than an opportunity to self-reflect or grow. Instead of sitting with that discomfort, she tries to rebuild her sense of self through external reinforcement. She may start chasing new attention aggressively, posting more, flirting more, or trying to prove she's desired. But this isn't confidence, it's compensation. She replaces reflection with performance. She doesn't know how to find worth internally, so she seeks it through reactions. But the truth is, no matter how many eyes she catches or compliments she receives, nothing hits the same depth that your genuine love once did. That's not romance, that's psychology. Fake admiration never matches real emotional investment, and she feels that difference no matter how loudly she pretends she doesn't. She begins experiencing emotional friction, a tug of war between the self she wants to believe she is and the self she fears she might be without your validation. One moment she convinces herself, "I'm better off, I always get someone better." The next moment she feels a quiet emptiness and doesn't understand why. Narcissists don't feel grief the way healthy individuals do. They don't mourn the loss of love. They mourn the loss of what that love did for them. Your presence fed her ego. Your absence confronts her with a reality she's not equipped to handle, a world where she is not unquestionably adored. During this time, she may even begin rewriting the story in her mind to protect her image. She might pretend she left first. She might convince herself you weren't special, or that she never really loved you anyway. These mental narratives aren't truth, they are armor. Anything is easier for her than admitting that losing you shook her sense of self-worth. The more secure and steady you appear without her, the more her identity feels threatened. She once believed she improved your life by simply existing in it. Now she sees that you're improving without her and that truth destabilizes her psychologically. But she won't change through this. Real transformation requires humility, accountability, and self-awareness. Traits narcissists don't practice. Instead of learning, she reorganizes her ego. She strengthens her mask, builds new defenses, and convinces herself she's still untouchable. Yet deep inside, she carries a truth she will never speak aloud. She didn't just lose someone who loved her, she lost a version of herself that only existed because you loved her. And that loss shakes her identity far more than losing the relationship ever could. When a narcissistic woman realizes she has lost someone who truly loved her, the final shift she faces is not anger, not denial, and not even nostalgia. It's emptiness, a kind of emotional void she never thought she'd feel. In her world, replacing people has always been easy. Attention was never scarce, validation was always within reach. But what she never understood was that most attention is shallow, and yours wasn't. When the temporary distractions fade, and the surface level admiration doesn't feel as powerful as the love you once offered, she is confronted with something she doesn't know how to process: emotional emptiness. This emptiness does not show up suddenly. It creeps in quietly, during moments of stillness. When the noise fades, when social media goes silent for the night, when her phone stops buzzing, she feels the weight of something missing. That missing piece is not affection. Narcissists don't crave emotional intimacy, they crave emotional control. What she misses is the emotional dominance she once held. She misses the certainty that someone out there adored her deeply, believed in her, saw beauty in her, and gave her emotional significance that couldn't be faked. When she realizes she cannot recreate that feeling easily, she feels hollow. That hollowness becomes especially clear when she tries to gather new attention. She may get compliments, admiration, or flirtation, but it feels thin. Surface-level admiration never fills the space created by genuine loyalty. She may even find someone new who worships her or follows her every move, but instead of feeling empowered, she finds herself comparing the depth, comparing the peace, comparing the emotional energy. She doesn't miss you because she loves you. She misses the version of herself she could be when someone truly valued her. And now every new source of attention feels less satisfying than it used to, because she has tasted validation that was rooted in genuine care, not superficial praise. This is where her inner frustration grows. Narcissists cycle through external sources to refill themselves, but when nothing fills, they don't know what to do. She does not have the emotional tools to sit with emptiness, so she becomes restless. Restlessness may look like impulsive decisions, sudden shifts in behavior, or an exaggerated display of happiness or confidence. She might make drastic changes, new look, new environment, new relationships, thinking she can outrun the feeling. But no matter what she does, there's a pause she cannot escape, a moment when the noise stops and she remembers what she no longer has access to. This stage tests her ego in a deeper way than anything before. She begins to realize something she never expected. Admiration is easy to get, but emotional security is rare. She never valued that security when she had it, because she believed she didn't need it. She believed emotional loyalty was guaranteed, not earned. But seeing that someone can genuinely walk away, heal, and rebuild without her creates a permanent crack in her self-image. It's not just the loss of validation. It's the realization that her power was not as absolute as she thought. This emptiness also forces her to confront the reality that emotional control isn't the same as emotional importance. She controlled your feelings once, now she no longer influences them. She mattered deeply once, now she watches from a distance, unable to recreate that depth. And because she cannot handle humility or introspection, she doesn't grow from this. Instead, she carries the emptiness like a silent shadow. She may never admit it, she may never show it, she may never speak a word about it, but it lingers. The knowledge that someone who once loved her so deeply now lives without her plays in her mind in quiet moments she cannot escape. And that is the final shift. The silent grief of losing a source of emotional power she thought she'd never lose, leaving her with a void she doesn't know how to fill and a truth she can't erase. She didn't lose love. She lost the one person she thought would never walk away from it. In the end, a narcissistic woman doesn't break because she lost love. She breaks because she lost control. She doesn't mourn you like a healthy person would. She mourns the power she had over your heart, the comfort of knowing someone saw her as rare, irreplaceable, and worthy of loyalty. When that kind of devotion disappears, she isn't left with regret. She's left with an identity she can't stabilize and a silence she can't outrun. And while she may pretend to have moved forward effortlessly, that emptiness stays with her, because true love doesn't come around often, and she didn't lose you by accident. She lost you because she never knew how to value what she was given. You didn't walk away from her. You walked back toward yourself. And for someone like her, that will always be the wound that pride can't heal and ego can't disguise.